Hello, everybody. Welcome to the All or Nothing podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome to the channel. This is also available on Apple or Spotify if you'd like to listen. So just wanted to put that out there. I feel like the YouTube is a little more popular, which is totally fine. But y'all, this channel is growing. We just hit 300 subscribers, which is just amazing. So welcome to all the new subscribers. I'm so glad y'all are here, or new listeners as well. We are continuing in the book of Matthew. We're almost done. We only have a couple more episodes for the book of Matthew, and then we're going to move on. But today we are continuing in Matthew chapter 18. Last week we talked about humility, and this week we are talking about temptation. So this is Matthew chapter 18, verses 7 through 9. We're just going to go ahead and get right into it and read the passage. So this is titled Temptations to Sin. It says, "Woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come, but woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. And if your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life crippled or lame than with 2 hands or 2 feet to be thrown into the eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than with 2 eyes to be thrown into the hell of fire." Now, recently I know that there have been many people and pastors talk about this passage, one in particular that's pretty popular right now. And a lot of people just think that this passage is very extreme, which it is, but that's the whole point. Is that Jesus is extreme sometimes with things that are very, very serious. And so, like I said, in Matthew, at the beginning of Matthew 18, which was last week's episode, Jesus was teaching about humility, childlike faith, and avoiding causing others to stumble. And so verses 1 through 6, which is right before these verses, he talked about becoming like a child and the seriousness of causing little ones to stumble. But here in verses 7 through 9, turn more inward, which so did the humility part of last week's episode. That's more inward, to humble ourselves before the Lord. But this is also more inward, dealing radically or aggressively with our own temptations to sin. So some key terms here from the literally 3 verses. The first one is woe. That's the first word of verse 7 is woe. Woe to the world for temptations to sin. Woe is not just sorrow, but a divine warning of judgment. If you read back in, I can't remember what chapter it is, but in Matthew where Jesus says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees." It may not be back. It may be in the future in Matthew. But woe is not a fun word. It is a warning from Jesus, from God. And he doesn't use it all that often. So that shows you right then and there the seriousness of this topic, the seriousness behind all of this, that he ain't playing. Jesus ain't playing. He means it, and he's serious about it. And so we shouldn't be playing. We should be serious. We should be dealing radically or aggressively with this topic, right? And so temptations, because that's the next term, woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come, right? But woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. So temptations here literally mean stumbling block, something that traps or lures us into sin. I mean, for the most part, temptations, every single time we're tempted and we give into that, it's leading to most likely a sin. Now, maybe you're tempted for food or whatever, maybe that's not a sin, but for the most part, when we are tempted for something, buy something, to do something, and we give into it, it is leading us to a sin. And so anytime we deny that temptation or walk away from it, like we're better off, right? Better off than sinning. And so that temptation is a stumbling block. It's something that basically is trying to get us or trap us, because temptations come from the enemy. The Lord God allows temptations to happen, right? It even says that it's necessary, which is the next term, is necessary. It speaks to the reality of living in a fallen world. We're going to be tempted. There's sin in the world. There's evil. There's awfulness, right? It's the reality of the fact that we live in a fallen world. So temptations are going to come. We can't escape it. It's going to happen, right? Temptations are unavoidable, but they're not excusable. They're unavoidable because of the world that we live in and the sin that we have in this world, but they're not excusable, which we're going to get into more of that in just a second. But the last term I wanted to share is hell. The Greek word is Gehenna. It is derived from the valley of Hinnom near Jerusalem. This valley was associated with the fire in the Old Testament, so it came to be seen as symbolic as hell, which a lot of people think hell is symbolic, but it's not. A burning trash dump outside of Jerusalem, symbolizing eternal judgment. Eternal judgment and hell are very real things. They're gonna happen. They're not symbolic. It's real. But let's get into point number 1, which is the reality of temptation, which I kind of slightly said. But verse 7 tells us basically that temptation is unavoidable because of the fallen world that we live in, right? God doesn't tempt us. I said that a minute ago. I didn't say that. I said that Satan tempts us. God does not tempt us. God allows it, but he does not tempt us. James 1 verse 13 tells us, let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. So right then and there tells us God does not tempt us, but stumbling blocks exist because of sin's presence. Satan, our enemy, is the one who tempts us. He is the one who puts the stumbling blocks in front of us. He is the one who tries to trap us, right? Literally goes all the way back to Genesis with Adam and Eve and the fruit, trying to trap them. And what did he do? He trapped them. And now that is why we have sin in the world, is because of that. And now the cycle just continues and continues and continues over and over and over again, generation after generation, because we live in a fallen world. But there is hope here. So Satan, our enemy, is the one who tempts. And we also see this in Job, the story of Job. We see that Satan had to ask God for permission to basically take everything from Job, which shows that God is over all, but it also shows that he allows it, because that's what he did. He allowed it to happen. And for the most part, he allows that to test us, to strengthen us, to grow our faith. And so, especially when it comes to temptation, God allows it probably because he's testing us, trying to grow our faith and all of that. And so, yeah, God allows temptations. He allows suffering. He allows all those things for a reason. Yet, he does allow those things. But y'all, the hope here is that there is always a way out. Temptation is unavoidable, like altogether. We can't just get rid of all temptation, never be tempted again. But there is always a way out. James 1 verse 14 and 15 tells us this, that God provides strength and a way out of temptation. It says, but each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. So that basically shows that temptation, when we give into it, it leads to sin, and sin leads to death, right? So I don't think that was that was the wrong verse. 1 Corinthians tells us, that was an important verse too, but 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13 tells us, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. So right there, he tells you there is no temptation that is too much, and there is no temptation that doesn't come with a way out. God always gives us a way out. That is a promise from God. He always gives us a way out because he is faithful. He is faithful to do that. So that's the hope, is that yes, we're going to be tempted, but there's a way out. It's not a way that people like. The way out is not necessarily something that's always enjoyable and that we like and is fun, but there is a way out. Point number 2 is for the second half of verse 7 all the way to verse 9. Is the danger of influence and the call to radical holiness. Radical, okay? That's the key word, radical. Our influence matters. Now, this can be in many different ways. So what Jesus is saying here is that we are to cut off or cut out what leads us into sin. So let me read that part again. This is verse 8 and 9. It says, and if your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life crippled or lame than with 2 hands or 2 feet to be thrown into the eternal fire, which is hell. Verse 9, and if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out, throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than with 2 eyes to be thrown into the hell of fire. So literally says cut off, cut out. Now this is not like literal cut your hand off, cut your eye out, gouge it out. No. But what Jesus is basically saying is what may lead us into sin, what tempts us, we need to cut it off or cut it out of our life. Have nothing to do with it. So this is why influence matters, because books, movies, shows, music, social media can normalize sin, can desensitize us, or lead us into compromise, which leads us to more and more temptation, which leads us more and more into sin, right? So seems a little radical, seems a little extreme, but that's because it is. Psalm 101 verse 3 says, I will not set before my eyes anything that is worthless. Proverbs 4 verse 23 says, guard your heart, for everything flows from it. So there are many scriptures, verses out there that tell us to guard, to not set your eyes before these things, to not be a part of this or a part of that, and to basically be careful of what your influence is. I mean, we have these influencers and we don't think about, we don't really think much about it, of who we're following on social media, that whether they're an influencer or not, they influence us. The things they post about, it's going into our minds, it's going into our thoughts. Sometimes we end up believing it. Sometimes we end up like acting on it and like doing the same things. And we have to be careful of what influences us. Radical action is required. Now, I'm not going to give personal examples because I don't want to sound all holier than thou, but there have been things that I have cut out because it's like, I know that it makes me think a certain way. It makes me feel a certain way. I react to this or that a certain way. And so you know what? I want nothing to do with it because I know that's going to lead into possible temptation and possibly sin. Now, yes, there is a way out of temptation. So you may be thinking, well, there's a way out. So I'm just going to let it tempt me and I'm going to choose not to sin. I'm going to choose not to give into it. But you're like inviting it in if you're doing that. If you're not cutting the things off, if you're not going to be radical about it, you're basically welcoming the temptation and the possibility of sin. So like I said, Jesus doesn't mean to literally cut off your hand or gouge out your eye or whatever, but it shows how serious God views sin. It shows the seriousness of it. Hence why he used the word woe. Woe to you. Matthew 5, verse 29 through 30 says, better to lose one member than to be thrown into hell. And that even says it here. It is better to cut those things off or cut those things out than to be tossed into hell, like for eternity, just because you wanted to keep your hand. Or let's put it in more simpler terms, just because you wanted to watch that movie, or just because you wanted to watch that book or read that book series. You're going to allow yourself, I don't want to say allow yourself, but you're going to send yourself to hell and spend eternity in hell because you wanted to be of this world and watch a bunch of stuff and read a bunch of stuff that isn't holy, isn't godly, that you should have nothing to do with, and it led you into sin. Just saying, that's the seriousness of this. Colossians 3:5 tells us to put to death what is earthly in us. We are not of this world, or at least that's what we're called, is to be set apart. We are to not be of this world, to not be conformed to this world and the beliefs and the thoughts and the ideologies and the all of Hollywood and such. No, we are to put to death those things. We are to put those things to death, the earthly, worldly things in us. Another verse, Hebrews 12:1 says, lay aside sin that clings so closely. So if you know of something off the top of your head right here now that you're like, yeah, that tempts me, or yeah, that causes me to lust, or that causes me to be more angry, more irritable with my husband, or yeah, that causes me to lash out at my children, because it affects our thoughts, it affects our actions, it affects our emotions, it affects everything. And so we have to lay those things aside, knowing that, oh yeah, that tempts me and probably is going to lead me into sin, because lust is sin, anger is sin. Well, not all anger, but that's besides the point. Pride is sin, selfishness, all of that, sin. So when we know something off the top of our head of, okay, let's say we read this book series that's full of ungodliness, promoting sin, full of sexual things, language, all this stuff. It's not good for us. It's not good for us. Whether it causes you to sin today when you read it or not, it could tomorrow. Why mess with it? Why invite it in? Why give it the opportunity to tempt you and possibly lead you into sin? Why? Put it to death. Lay it aside. Ephesians 4:27 literally says, give no opportunity to the devil. Do not, that's ESV. NIV says, do not give the devil a foothold. So when you're reading these books, when you're listening to this music, when you are hanging out with these friends, when you are whatever, let's just stick with those. You are giving the devil a foothold. And you may think, whoa, that's extreme. Whoa, that's extreme. Chill out. Like, calm down. It's not that bad. It's not that big of a deal. It is. Jesus says it is. Jesus says, hey, deal radically with this. Deal aggressively with this. Stop playing with sin. Stop messing with it. Stop giving it a foothold, because eternal consequences are real. They're real. This is not just a game or for fun. Like, it is real. Eternity, where we spend eternity, that is real. It's serious. Isaiah 66 verse 24 and Mark 9 verse 47 and 48 tell us fire that is never quenched. Talking about hell. Never ends. Revelation 20 verse 14 and 15 tells us it's a lake of fire, final judgment. It is very real and it doesn't sound pleasant. And that's just brief. We could do a whole episode on hell, but doesn't sound pleasant, doesn't end, and it's final judgment, literally the wrath of God, which you don't want to be in, you don't want to be a part of. So the point is to deal radically with our sin. And the world needs to be reminded of that. Christians today need to be reminded of that. We've gotten too lukewarm, y'all. We've gotten too lukewarm. We have gotten too complacent. We have gotten too desensitized. We have allowed the enemy to creep in and normalize sin. And we have let him creep in and lead us into compromise. We have compromised, y'all. We need to stop that. And I'm not condemning you. I'm not. I don't want I get passionate, but I'm not condemning y'all, okay? I am just reminding you because I see these people, and I'm not saying this as judgment. This is something I've also had to cut out, okay? But I see Christian people all over social media and stuff. They post, a certain song or a certain book they're reading or whatever, and I look into it and it's like, y'all, what are you listening to? What are you watching? Come on. Like, I'm not perfect. There are things that I still need to cut out and such, but there have been a lot of things I've cut out. And honestly, I encourage y'all, if right now you're like, well, I can't really think of anything. And some of y'all, you know what you're a part of. You know what you watch, what you read, and you need to stop it. You need to change it. But some of y'all may actually be like, well, I don't know. I don't know what's bad. I don't know what I've compromised. I don't know what I do that is actually sin that I've normalized. Ask the Lord. Ask him. I highly recommend all of y'all every single day, ask the Lord, Lord, is there anything that I'm a part of, that I read, that I watch, that I listen to, friends that I hang out with that are not of you, that go against your word, that is sin, that is evil, that I shouldn't be a part of, that I should cut out or cut off? Lord, show me, convict me. Holy Spirit, work and move in me and show me, hey, not this. No, not that. This person you shouldn't be friends with. This book that you're reading, absolutely not. Like, he will tell you. He will tell you. I honestly am probably not diligent at praying it every day, but I do pray it, and there have been thing after thing that the Lord has been like, nope, not that anymore. Cut that out. There have been books. Y'all, I love romance novels. I love any rom-com, but I pretty much have cut all of those out. I don't really read books unless they're about Jesus. I'll watch maybe a rom-com with my husband, a clean one, but which is very hard to find, just saying. Like, it is very hard to find clean romance stuff. And so that's the problem, is we compromise and we're like, well, it's not that bad, but like, it is, and we need to cut it out. Because it affects our relationships with people, with our spouses, with our friends, but also with God. And we need to be more radical. We need to do that. So some practical applications as we end is more personal, on a personal level. We need to identify and cut off influences that open the door to sin. So what I just said, pray the prayer of, Lord, convict me if there's anything I'm a part of, anything that I watch, let my eyes, what was the verse? I will not set before my eyes anything that is worthless, which unholy, ungodly, Psalm, that was Psalm 101, verse 3. Relational, we need to be aware of our influence. Your life is either a stepping stone or a stumbling block. You either are leading somebody to Christ or you're causing them to sin. Maybe not right then and there, but you could cause them to sin. You are a stumbling block. On a spiritual level, we need to remember that this is part of spiritual warfare. Ephesians 6:10-18 tells us this, that we are in a spiritual battle. We need to put on the armor of God. So we need to cut out the things, but we also need to put on the armor of God and fight, because the enemy is going to come for us and say, oh, but this is okay. Oh, but this is fine. This isn't sin. Y'all, this is spiritual warfare. Cutting those things out is spiritual warfare. It's real, and it can be intense. But also, lastly, it is eternal. On an eternal level, the cost of holding on to sin is far greater than the cost of letting go. That the scripture tells us that it is better to cut off or cut out those things than to spend eternity in hell. The cost of holding on to that book you want to read, that book series, because everybody else is reading it, FOMO. No, it's not worth it. Eternally, it's not worth it. It may seem like it in the moment, but it is not worth it. It's not worth it, y'all. It's not. I'm pleading with you, not judging you. I'm pleading with you because it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Watching Bridgerton because everybody else does. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Cut it out. Don't watch it. Onyx Storm. I'm just going to say it. Onyx Storm, the whole book series. It's not worth it. Cut it out. Now you may be like, wait, what? Like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with Onyx Storm? Y'all, okay, I will briefly just say, full of language, full of sexual things, full of magic, awful, it just promotes sin. It promotes evil. It is not holy. It does not lead you closer to Christ at all. That's all I'll say about that book series for now. But just because everybody else is obsessed with it and you have FOMO doesn't mean you need to read it. Doesn't mean you need to be a part of it, because again, this is eternity we're talking about. The cost of holding on to that, the cost of, well, everybody's obsessed with it. It's such a good book. I want to listen to it, or I want to read it. The cost is so big. It's not worth it. It would be better to cut those things out and live in joy and peace because with Christ, and especially eternally, than read those books or watch that movie or listen to that music or go see Taylor Swift. The cost isn't worth it. It's not worth it. But there is hope here, because I mentioned that giving up those things, it would be better to give up those things and live in joy and peace with Christ, because Jesus isn't calling us to misery. He isn't saying, oh, being a Christian's no fun. You don't get to have any fun, no joy, no peace, no nothing. Like it's miserable, but you need to choose misery. No, Jesus isn't calling us to misery, but to freedom and life. The gospel gives us both forgiveness for failure and strength to live in holiness. And it's far greater. What the world tells us will give us happiness and freedom and all of that. No, it's not. It's actually bondage. It is bondage and will lead us to sin, will lead us to eternity in hell. It's not worth it. What's actually freedom is Jesus. What's actually freedom is holiness. That's true freedom. That is true life. And it's not just here on earth, it's eternal. That is worth it. The cost is not. So y'all, I feel like I got very passionate and loud and yelly. So I'm sorry, but this has come so dear to my heart this past year or so, because a lot of us are lukewarm. And I was there. I was there at not the beginning of this year, but at the end of last year, I was there. And the Lord showed me, no. And so now I am just here sharing with you, and pray that the Lord will open your eyes to things of what you need to cut out and what you need to give up to strive for more holiness, more of Jesus, less of us. Like that song that says, if more of you means less of me, then take everything. That means the movies I watch, the books I read, the people I hang out with, the job I work at, like literally everything. It means take everything, Jesus. I want more of you, less of me. I want more of you, less of the world. More freedom and life than bondage. So I just encourage you to go to the Lord and ask him that. Ask him. And when he shows you, yeah, this movie or this TV show you've been watching, this artist you've been listening to, this relationship you're in, this person that you're living with, whatever it may be, listen to him. Obey. Cut it out. Cut it off. Be radical with your sin, with temptation. Don't see how far or how close you can get to the line. Don't mess with it. Don't play with it. Don't see, oh, let me see how close I can get before the temptation takes over and I sin. No. Listen to him and obey and cut it out. Stay away from it. Get as far back as you can. That's the point here, is get as far back as you can from temptation and sin and live a life for Christ. That's pretty much it. So y'all, I really do love you. I'm not condemning you. And I hope that this really is encouragement to change some things. Be more radical for Jesus. Be more radical in your walk with the Lord. Be more radical with temptation and sin. Okay? So next week, I hope y'all are ready for another episode. I can't remember off the top of my head if it is the book of Matthew or if it's something completely different. I have an episode coming up that is not from Matthew, and it is very different. So I feel like that one's next, but I can't remember. So just stay tuned. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and to hit the little bell so that you are notified when I post. And if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, don't forget to save and share and all the things. So it greatly helps. So anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next episode.